I knew that. So I'm discombobulated.
I understand. Yeah, but it was hot and I had this cute little sweater I wanted to wear and I just couldn't do it.
Well, my phone says it's 8:29, but we're gonna see what happens. Go back over here. Like I'm on right now and they can hear us, but I can't.
Is this where the fun is?
This is where the fun is. I'm trying to create the fun. I think that I'm live funning right now.
I
and
got
I'm seeing it.
Parfait cup, because we don't have any other, Slim Fast.
Oh,
So this is the
perfect.
party. Cheer, oh, cheers.
Perfect.
I got tipsy this morning. This seat is the seat that keeps on going right here.
Yeah.
And this is
Hey, you guys. Hey, we won't be lagging. So, hey guys, good morning. I'm gonna shut the door. Look, I've got guests. I'm so excited.
what's up?
What is up? Please let us know if you can't hear us. I tested this last night. Johnny, I feel like we can see you. Okay. Now it's getting back. Welcome back to the station, MREA. And oh, there's Janet. Janet Johnson. There's a lot of activity going on today in the market center because today is business planning clinic and these wonderful folks here are going to business planning clinic. I'm going to put a different view up here. I don't know that it matters, but there we go. So we may not have all participants like we usually do because they'll be getting their seats in here. So you'll see these people walking by. So there'll be a lot of energy. Anyway, we're bringing it. And today we're going to talk about, we're still talking about how we think. And we're going to begin with thinking competitively and strategically. Hey, Drew, good morning.
Good morning.
And then thinking standards and thinking service. And we're going to talk about, man, there's some great models in here for you to set up your business that you could just flesh out and make your standards already with the list that's in here. And I love this chapter. So let's dive right in. Page 89, thinking competitively and strategically. I love this chapter. What did you guys think about it? It's weird now because you're in the room, I think, right?
We can raise a hand or something?
Yeah, raise a hand if you're going to talk. Hey, Janet. Listen, I'll start. I love it that he says that he expects competition to be fun. Okay, and so it's just like playing a board game with someone. And isn't it true? We see the competitive strategies come out when we play with the people that we love the most. And they're like, yes, I'm going to win risk, or your battleship is going down. Okay. And it's fun at the same time, right? And we love seeing that part. I love his analogy about that with his son and how we don't do that in real estate. We don't think about that. So I love talking, but I'm going to let you guys talk. What did you think about that? Well, it's okay. It's okay. I just didn't want to hog the room because I can do that.
Well, I think with competition, I think what we need to do is like figure out like what's best for our clients.
Yeah.
And then kind of coordinate that. So our communication really is with our clients to figure things out and then just be honest and transparent. You know. I
love every bit of that because you totally do that. And I know one thing about you, Johnny, and that's what we had Johnny on the panel the other day, is if there's trouble, you're already making a strategy of how you're going to fix it. And it's like playing chess, right? Now, that's a really strategy. When you're playing chess and making the moves on the board, you have to be ahead of what you think the person's going to do next, right? And the big picture. So it's big picture thinking. I love every bit of that. I think that one thing that I love about the conversation about sports and sports analogy, and everybody probably watched the Bulldogs and Tennessee over the weekend and the competition and the craziness of that. Everything that you watch, we expect athletes at a high level to not hold back, right? And to get out there and hustle. But one thing, good morning, Carol, come in.
Good morning.
One thing I appreciated about competition that I don't think we do in real estate is that we're practicing on the field with our fellow agents. We're out on the practice field and we're like, oh, we're going to run the play, but we're going to be like, oh, I'm so sorry that we did I hurt you? Are your feelings hurt? You know, all those things are kind of the same analogy that he mentioned that coach said, gosh, I saw those people, you know, my players were not playing full on. They were apologetic to each other because we love each other. And I think some of that might be my eye. But at the same time, when he changed how they thought about competing and strategy, they started having a higher respect for bring on your A game, and I'm going to bring on mine because we want to be the best we can be, and I expect no less from you. So I think we get outside of that and we start thinking that's a bad thing. But I think that when top producers do this, they respect you bringing your A game and going for it. And at the end of the day, you shake hands like they do on a competitive field and say, you brought it today, good job, we respect that. So I think that's what we need more of in this business, is because we get into apologetic and we don't get into practicing skill sets. But high producers and high achievers want us to do that. Did you love the part where he said that on the panel, the person called in and said, I know you're going to go in my farm, right? You're going in my farm and I intend to get that listing, so bring it. Right?
They did.
And they did, and he did, and they appreciated that about each other. They didn't get their feelings hurt about it. So I think that's where that thinking part comes in. I absolutely, at first, when going through the MREA, that's one I didn't really think about, but I think that that's where we have to shift how we think about each other and let each other have permission and love and celebrate us bringing our skill level up and going for it. Right? Mm-hmm. So what did you, any nuggets to add to that? I know, I don't know if I can hear Janet. Janet, just unmute and say hi to see if it works.
Hi.
Hi, it does.
Janet.
Yay. Do you have any, you always give us some good nuggets. What did you think about that?
It reminds me of when my kids were in t-ball and soccer when they were really little, and they weren't competitive at all, you know, the way they would back off in case somebody was coming at the ball and they were afraid that they might hurt them if they ran into them or something, and that changed over time.
Well, and I think if we know that that we're working on it, that knowing is half the battle, right? We know that. I think he said, like, a low achiever says, you know, can we do that? Talking about the strategies in the market. And a high achiever says, well, why did someone say we couldn't? Now, he did go into, like, I'm not advocating not following the rules. And sometimes we keep ourselves from being strategic when we are thinking about those types of things, because I like how he said that we're set up when we get into real estate business to be more about the rules, right? Because as soon as we start real estate school, we're going into all the ways we're going to get in trouble, right? Just like when you go into surgery, they're like, there's a chance you're going to feel something. We have to just tell you all the bad stuff that might happen.
You might die.
Right, you might die. So you get all of that and you're fed all of that. And definitely we want to operate in integrity and follow the rules. But sometimes thinking outside the box gets us to win. I love the curveball story about how no one really thought that, you know, the ball going across the plate in a ball game is the same way. And then Candy Cummings created the curveball where it would look like it was coming straight and at the last minute it would fall. And people were like, that's not fair. Can they do that? And so, right? So you've got to find the curveballs in your strategy in real estate. I love that piece. This was one of my favorites. One of my favorites. Is there anything I'm missing that we need to talk about that would be a great nugget?
I don't know if you said it before, but, you know, I think you can, particularly within our office, you want everybody to be a win-win. We hear that so much, right?
Yes.
Win-win. That you have to be careful, because people spot those people that may, because of their desire to please, they see that personality and they move in. Some people move in like sharks, unlike, you know, us. I think we're all respectful of each other, but they take advantage of that when they see that.
So that would be part of the strategy if you know yourself, because that would fall into some of the DISC profile. That right. If you know that about yourself, you may have to pick up on what the other side of your transactions DISC is and be very careful about that.
Well, and I don't know if it's even in this section, but I may be ahead on the DISC. You know, it's different in your DISC and in your business DISC. That stuck out to me. did, because
Yeah.
I'd forgotten about that.
So are you referring to your drive versus your business drive?
Right.
Then
Right,
you
the
have
disc
to,
in there.
yeah,
It's different.
absolutely.
It is different.
absolutely. I love every bit of that. So you guys move into the next phase, thinking standards. Well, before we do that, I wrote on at the top of this page, everyone doesn't get a trophy.
Right
Right?
now, in fall, the little ones get a trophy, I'm
Well,
sorry.
that's okay, but everyone doesn't always get a trophy,
Yeah.
and it's okay.
Mhm.
We just have to go for the trophy, right? Catch me if you can. So, all right, so thinking standards.
I just want to add
Yes.
something to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Like, when I'm hearing what we're discussing and thinking outside the box and all
Mhm.
this, I am immediately going to the multiple offer situation, the high demand for homes with a low inventory situation,
Mhm.
because that's when you really have, that's when you have those skills that pop out. And now that we're in a different type of, when you admit her,
Thank you.
I think right now, I think that, we can't let that go. We still have to kind of keep our, be on top of things,
Absolutely.
Yeah, as things shift, we still need to be the mindset of like, we've got to go in, we got to take care of things and just, not get lax.
Right, don't slacken our practice. Always remember how you put your shoes on first, right? Because it matters.
We've been through that where other people may not have, right? So
Right.
that experience will come to play.
Isn't that funny that we're saying that we've been through this and other people haven't, like people that are just getting their license haven't experienced that, the craziness we just went through. And we have different skills than they do. So that gives you a little bit of an edge or a little bit extra skill when it comes to those pieces in your business. So sharpening iron.
Well, and I think
iron.
it's not just with working with other agents, but it also understanding that clients already have so much information the first time we meet them.
Yeah, they do.
So we have to be ready. I mean, they'll ask questions that we think they didn't know anything about.
Exactly.
But they do.
Sorry, I'm late. Come on in.
That's
It's
fine.
down the line. If you
Just
sit
right
right
there.
over there, they can
Yeah.
see you. So guys, we have about 15 minutes left. So I'm going to move into thinking standards, and I've highlighted a couple of things. Standards are about defining levels of performance and then holding yourself and others accountable to meeting and exceeding those levels. And I think when we get started as individual agents, we may not really think about putting a standard system in place. And I go back to Gary saying that he built a 20-lane highway, right? So he built a 20-lane highway for what that looks like. And so standards are how you want how you want the public to see who you are in terms of what service they get and how they want to remember you. And I remember that several times in classes, I've heard people say, well, people don't, and we've already talked about this, people don't really buy into you. They buy into what you provide. Like they like the standards you represent. So they love you, but it's because of your standards.
So I think if I could add to that,
You
not
can.
to keep battling here, but I think when we have either a solo agent starting up or a small team developing or whatever the case may be, that systems must involve standards. Like your systems
Absolutely.
must include standards.
Mhm.
And so when you have your systems, as you're building them one step at a time, then you build in your standards at the same time. So as you possibly add an admin or add someone else to that connection, to that group, that the standards remain.
Absolutely. You build those. And you know what? First and foremost, you have to hold yourself to the standards
Mhm.
first
Mhm.
before saying that someone else has the standards.
And they need
So
to be
depending what that is, you might.
Well, I think one thing too, you have to be consistent, and if nothing else, just to avoid discrimination, because if you treat one client different than another, you run the risk of being accused of discriminating, even though there's no intention there.
Absolutely. I think standards will help you be able to maintain what you want everyone to receive.
Mhm.
And it keeps you from making mistakes that aren't unintentional. I agree with that, Janet. I think that's true. I think that it brings out when people want to hire their first person, their admin, they a lot of times will be so overwhelmed that they're doing a knee jerk and they want to grab somebody to help take the slack off. And so they're going to pick out of necessity and helping them feel better in the moment, rather than taking a step back and implementing standards and systems for the person to help them grow with them from that $20 million to $80 million, because they can take them there if they hire the right person. So later on, we'll talk about hiring, but it brings that standard piece in when people do that. They've not thought about that piece and trained them and held them accountable to how they want things to roll. I wrote a square around the words, people who share our standards. So that's one thing, picking people who share your standards well and conveying them up front. These are the core values that are important to me in my business. So if you're going to be in my business, these have to be important to you too. And it goes back to Keller Williams as a company and our Y4C2Ts. We thrive with entrepreneurs who buy into those philosophies, those core values, and those standards for themselves. So is there anything in that piece that I'm missing that you guys want to talk about? Thinking standards. Any examples of what you might have already in place in your business?
One of the things I think we can fall short on is, and it may be gone over, but and Drew and I just talked about it this morning, inspecting what you expect. You know, if you hold someone to a high standard, but you never go back, even me, even checking myself, if you don't ever inspect it for what you expect, how can you expect that person to keep doing?
Right, because you're not correcting
standard
along the way and saying, well, you did, this was really great, but this is what it should look like overall. And I think that's part of that, holding yourself to the standard first and including yourself in the checks and balances, because we get busy and we, like Janet says, we don't intend for things to fall through a crack, and sometimes they will. So if we are, the accountability piece makes that important. It's an important piece. Can you guys hear Carol? Did you guys hear her? Okay.
Barely.
Okay. So she is saying, making sure that you do checks and balances and hold people accountable to the standards, and that you need to inspect what you expect. So even if it's for yourself or someone that's in your business, that's an important piece to keeping standards high. So number 9 is thinking service. And they said like most agents think service. They're servant hearts. They already have that piece about them. And that's one of the reasons they got into real estate. They have a servant's heart. And we've got a lot of pieces here that are great for selling, for setting up your business service systems. And so Gary determined that service has 3 levels. One is purpose, knowing how they play the game, why they should be hired, and they're able to articulate that. So top producers, high achievers in any field know exactly their worth and why people need to hire them, and they're able to say that. They know who that is or not. There's no low confidence in that. So we know that they also have a value proposition. That's number 2. So they know beyond their, even beyond their sense of purpose, that they are able to translate that purpose and that reason people should hire them down to a specific set of services they provide. So I don't know if it's usually 3 things. NAR always does every year a report that says, what are the main things people want from real estate agents? So in classes, we've always taken those things. If we know what they want, then we need to make our value proposition speak to those things directly, because they already have told us that's what they want. And usually for a seller, that's to get the highest price in the shortest amount of time with the least amount of hassle. Like those 3 things are the things they want. And for buyers, it's for us to find them a house in a timely manner that's a great price with the least amount of hassle. So if we know those things are the best, then that's what we should build our value statement around, because they're going to go, oh, that's exactly what I'm looking for. That's awesome. Right? So curious, do you guys already have a value proposition? I always call it the elevator speech that you would give to someone if you saw them in the elevator and you discovered they were a buyer or seller. How would you win them over in 30 seconds? Have you thought about it that way?
Mine is, I'm here to guide you through calm through all the chaos. So.
There you
I
go.
like that a lot.
Because it is.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Tulani said, I'm here to guide you through in calm through the chaos, with calm through the chaos. Very nice.
I had an opportunity yesterday. Someone called one of my listings sign call. Oh, aren't you gonna have an open house today? I said, no. And he said, well, I was, gonna come. I said, well, I'll be there, So I called it was an occupied home. So I called the person. I said, yeah, you can do the showing. So I popped in over there, sign call situation, right? And I thought, okay, now this is not the right house, but I want to help him, right? So I had to think really fast through all this we're discussing, elevator talk.
Elevator talk.
Like, how do I tell him I'm the right fit for him, or at least offer my services so that he might feel comfortable with that? I thought, well, I could, Johnny has like 900 words, but that's not gonna work today, Johnny needs 9 words to work today. And so, and we're good.
Good.
So I sent a subscription, he sent an email back, he's a physician, and things are great, so.
So you thought really quickly, I need to
But I
pare
mean, like,
down
what
my
do you
words
say?
to a quick elevator
Right.
speech.
I had asked, was he working with another agent?
Yeah.
I had explained that I was a free service to him. I had to tell him that I had some experience and value and what I could bring, but I was thinking to myself, I really wish I had practiced this a little more so that I could be more natural with it. It was natural, but it was like I was digging. So scripting, right?
Yeah, and I
You know?
think you could even put that, I know in some of the classes, especially like winning with sellers and winning with buyers, which is a Keller Williams course. And I'm sure Ignite still has that component to it, that when you figure out your value proposition, you can put that in a lot of places. You're gonna put it on your website, you're gonna put it all the places because it's your statement, it's your mission. I had written in here, and before I went back and looked at this, I had already had these words written above value proposition: to improve the lives of agents by teaching and empowering them to create habits that create a difference in their business. So that's what I wrote above value proposition. And I was like, oh, look at how nice that is. and at the same time, where am I using that as a statement, right? So I think that that's one of those things that you can implement as standards, right? And services in your business. So the third service level is a fiduciary. And that is being a fiduciary instead of being a functionary. So I'm not going to go through all the top service areas of buyers and sellers since we don't have a lot of time. But for those of you watching, on page 95, there's a complete list of things that we do, the top 10 service areas to create a seller value proposition, and top 10 service areas of the buyer value proposition. So if you're struggling with this is an owner's manual for your standards and your services for business. And you can take each one of those and flesh that out, right? So take a peek at that, because a lot of times people are lost in like this big thing. It's right here on page 95 for you guys. So is there anything that popped out? I mean, those are very simple for you guys. When you revisited this, especially those that have been in business for a while, was there anything in there that you thought you could round out or flesh out a little bit more when you look back at this?
I'm trying to round out my vendor coordination part.
Okay, the vendor coordination part. I know that was one of the things that it was talking about on the last page 96. Of being the difference between a functionary and a fiduciary was that piece of that. So let's talk about being a functionary and a fiduciary. So on page 96, it talks about the difference between the two types of service. Functionary is just checking off tasks, like they just respond, they just gather the data, they give it back. A fiduciary is exceptional. Functionary is average. So I have to tell you guys, this morning, I read this over the weekend, but I listened to it as well again this morning while I was getting ready. And, he's talking about it on Audible, and it's very, it's really not super exciting to listen to somebody read that list. So my husband's listening to it at the same time. And he goes, so functionary and fiduciary. He said, why don't you just tell them that fiduciary is a Keller Williams agent and functionary is everybody else. I said, okay. I said, that sounds great, doesn't it? However, I want you to take a peek at that list and look to see where you need to create exceptional in your service versus average. So one of the things I circle was, what I really love is responds to needs, anticipates needs, processes data versus interpreting data. Like those are causing us to be strategic, right? And thinking about the chess pieces on the board and not just reacting, but being proactive in making them feel like we are 5 steps ahead of them on everything that's happening in our service. So this is where we win as a skills-based market, because we've been in order taker world, right? And now we always need to stay in fiduciary world. So any comments about this? I love this list here and this visit to what type of business and exceptional service are we running, and are we just being average like everybody else out there? Are we going to be able to say that in our value proposition of how we're different? Those are some really great pieces there. You know what? I don't just respond to information. You know, I'm anticipating your needs ahead of time. Right? What do you guys think?
I think that's one of the things it says in the promise too, is that you're not going to, if you can't guarantee a smooth transaction, you're going to stay ahead of things that come up and deal with them. But I get so annoyed, and I don't know if this is on the list because I'm driving, but with agents who don't watch the timelines and let things lapse and put their client in jeopardy.
There's a lot of
I'm trying to listen. Do I have to check in?
Yeah, you need your meeting.
Well, listen, we are going to try to mute you, Adrian. There is no try.
She's just talking.
Okay, so, and I like that, Janet. I think that goes part of our service and part of the things that buyers and sellers want. So guys, we are right here close to 9 o'clock, and we have a great business planning clinic that's going to be going by this book here. So we'll see you guys next Monday, and thank you to these awesome people in the room. And we love y'all. Bye. Bye. See you. Bye.